talk about Raw, and then we'll get into just some quick SmackDown thoughts, and then I got Backlash predictions. Raw was, I guess, in Bizarro Land. Is that how WWE... Now, does Bizarro Land encompass all of Canada, or is it only specific cities? I assume that meant all of Canada. And so Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver and all these different places would kind of fall under the same umbrella. Calgary. Anyway, they were in Montreal, Quebec, this past Monday. Over 2,200 votes in our Twitter poll at Solomonster. 55% of you said thumbs up, 45% of you said thumbs down. So not a great ratio. Roman Reigns came out at the beginning of the show. He was eviscerated by the Montreal crowd to open the show. They showed a tweet from referee Chad Patton apologizing for blowing the call in the cage match at the Greatest Royal Rumble. He admitted that Roman Reigns should have won because it was his feet that hit the floor first, not Brock Lesnar. But you can wipe your ass with that apology because it doesn't change the outcome. Brock Lesnar still won. It did, however, give Roman an out to come out here and say that I'm the real Universal Champion, which is just a great way, by the way, of getting him booed even more. If that was the goal here, it worked. And I'm watching this, and I'm watching this crowd, and I know the Canadian crowds are one of those crowds that tend to be more lively and more vocal, and it would be very easy for all the people out there who love to say, well, it's one of those smart... I used to joke about that all the time because when it was Roman or Cena or whoever would come out, and they wouldn't get a reaction that was sort of expected or hoped for by WWE, you would always have the defenders say, well, this is a smart city. New York and these places, these are smart cities. And then when it started happening in places like Louisville, and like, I don't know, like Tacoma, Washington, and places like, I'm like, oh boy, I didn't know that Tacoma and Louisville were also smart cities. And that shut them up real quick. But at what point do they realize that this is not a Montreal problem, or a New York problem, or a Chicago problem, or a New Orleans problem? It is a Roman Reigns problem. It is a Vince McMahon problem. At what point do they admit this? At what point do they do something about it? Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman are the two top babyfaces on this brand right now. And neither one of them are challenging for what is supposed to be the top title in... Well, I guess it is really the top title in the company, but at the very least, the top title on Monday Night Raw. Braun Strowman just won a 50-man Royal Rumble match, the biggest Royal Rumble of all time, and they didn't have him say word one on this show about wanting Brock Lesnar's title. No, he's in a tag team match tonight. There's something wrong with this picture. Now, you contrast that Roman Reigns promo that you heard if you could hear it over the booze at the beginning of the show, you contrast that with the Seth Rollins promo later on in the show. They loved him so much. They were so loud, they wouldn't even let the man speak. It reminded me of when Hogan came out on SmackDown that time. I don't know if it was in Montreal or it was in... I could have sworn it was in Canada. So maybe it was Toronto or Montreal or Ottawa or somewhere. But he came out and it was 5 minutes before they would let him speak. He just leaned on the ropes and sort of took it all in. He was getting all emotional, and nobody milks a reaction better than Hulk Hogan does. But it was this genuine reaction, this genuine outpouring of love for that man. And this, I wouldn't put this on the Hogan level, but it kind of reminded me of that, where he sort of just at one point, Rollins leaned on the ropes and just sort of looked out and he couldn't believe it. He was genuinely moved by the reaction that he got here. And when he speaks now, because he's a babyface, he comes across as very humble when he speaks, and just comes across as being very genuine. Finn Balor, by the way, came out to challenge him to an Intercontinental title match because, as he pointed out, they were all knotted up. Two singles wins apiece for both of these men. And Rollins agreed, and so that was what set up the main event later on in the